Corporate crimes, the Murdaugh Dynasty, power, privilege, and the murder that destroyed a legal empire. Based on U.S. trending, Alex Murdaugh conviction overturned, plus family saga. Target, U.S. and global audience. Duration, less than 10 minutes. Title, The Murdaugh Family Curse, How 3 Generations of Powerful Lawyers Ended in Blood and Betrayal. Eric Chatto-Cedar turns the Themery conspiracy witched trust dumpy enginor. Here's the full, disturbing story. Script, wipe its full in Swansea. We care on Locrate, because workers often miss it short. The title is some sort treakin' pullet to power keeps falling. Volnacy, for over 85 years, the Murdaugh family ran the judicial system in a 5-county region with absolute authority. They prosecuted criminals, appointed judges, collected millions in settlements, and when it all came crashing down, it wasn't an investigation that stopped them. It was a double murder, with the family's own son as the prime suspect. Think again, because what we've learned in the months since his conviction paints a much darker picture. This isn't just a murder case. This is a story about how a family with unchecked power for 3 generations was able to defraud clients, manipulate the legal system, and literally get away with murder until they couldn't. And in a shocking twist that made national headlines this week, the South Carolina Supreme Court has overturned Alex Murdaugh's murder conviction. Yes, you heard that right. One of the most high-profile murder convictions in American history has been thrown out. Here's how we got here, and why this case is far from over. WAG, visual, music. The Murdaugh family story begins in 1910, when Randolph Murdaugh Sr. was elected solicitor, what most states call a district attorney of South Carolina's 14th Judicial Circuit. From that moment, the Murdaughs controlled who was prosecuted, who was protected, and who went to prison across 5 rural counties. It became known as the Murdaugh Dynasty. For 85 years, 3 generations of Murdaugh men held the office without interruption, father to son to grandson. They were the law in this part of South Carolina, but the power went beyond the courtroom. The Murdaughs owned the largest personal injury law firm in the region, Peters, Murdaugh, Parker, Eltroth, and Dietrich, which handled some of the biggest civil cases in the state. They had political connections, social standing, and a nearly untouchable reputation. In a place like Hampton County, South Carolina, where the population is under 20,000, the Murdaughs weren't just lawyers, they were royalty, and like many royal families, they had secrets. Updates: June Jerry rips a Polit leaked Alito paradise. The first major crack came in February 2019. Mallory Beach, a 19-year-old college student, was killed in a boating crash. The driver was Paul Murdaugh, Alex's younger son. Paul was charged with boating under the influence, but the case dragged on. The Murdaugh name seemed to shield him from consequences. Then, on June 7, 2021, Paul Murdaugh and his mother Maggie were found shot to death on the family's hunting property, Moselle. Alex Murdaugh called 911, saying he'd found their bodies after returning from visiting his ailing father. The initial narrative was that the murders were related to the boat case, retaliation maybe, or a targeted attack. But investigators noticed something. Alex's alibi was paper thin. His phone data placed him near the scene at the time of the murders, and his story kept changing. The investigation took another turn when it emerged that Alex Murdaugh had been stealing from his own law firm. For years, he'd been running a scheme where he'd settle cases without telling his clients, then pocket the money. The total? Over $8 million stolen from clients, including a quadriplegic man and a family whose teenager had been killed in a train accident. By September 2021, Alex was indicted on 22 counts of fraud, and then things got even stranger. Alex claimed someone shot him in the head on the side of a road. He said it was a hitman who'd killed Paul and Maggie, but the evidence suggested Alex had hired the shooter himself in a bizarre insurance fraud plot to leave a life insurance payout to his surviving son, Buster. It was like a crime novel written by someone who'd watched too many True Detective episodes. Where? Visual. Music. Alex Murdaugh went to trial for the murders in January 2023. The prosecution's case was largely circumstantial, but powerful. Cell phone data, surveillance footage, and Alex's own admissions that he lied to investigators. In March 2023, the jury found him guilty of murdering his wife and son. He was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences. Case closed, right? Not quite. In April 2026, just weeks ago, the South Carolina Supreme Court overturned Alex Murdaugh's murder conviction. The court ruled that the trial judge had made a critical error, allowing testimony about Murdaugh's financial crimes during the murder trial. The court said the jury was unfairly prejudiced by evidence that had nothing to do with the double homicide. The ruling was 4-3, with the dissenting justices arguing that the financial crimes were relevant because they provided a motive for murder, to prevent his fraud scheme from being exposed by his sons or through the boating case. So now what? Alex will get a new trial. The state attorney general has already announced they will retry the case, but memories fade, witnesses move on, and evidence grows old. Whatever happens next, one thing is clear: the Murdaugh dynasty, once an unbreakable institution in South Carolina legal history, is gone, and the story of its destruction is a masterclass in how absolute power corrupts absolutely. Well, visual warning. Music, the Murdaugh case is a reminder that no amount of power, money, or family legacy can protect you forever. 85 years of absolute control over a legal system, wiped out in less than 2 years because of greed, addiction, and murder. Will Alex Murdaugh walk free? Almost certainly not. He still faces 22 counts of federal fraud that carry decades in prison. But the overturning of his murder conviction is a reminder that in America, even the most hated defendant gets a fair trial. If you got something from this story, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to Corporate Crimes for more deep dives into the scams, frauds, and crimes that shape our world. And leave a comment. Do you think Alex Murdaugh should get a new trial? I want to hear your take. See you next time. Corporate Crimes, Alex Murdaugh, True Crime, Murdaugh Dynasty, Scottus, Justice.